Yesterday, the Baltimore Ravens took down the Indianapolis Colts in their first preseason game of the year, and it was our first look at the rookies. So let's talk about my initial reactions on how they played. Now, first off, the title of the video is going to be about Lajohntay Wester, but before we talk about his performance, I just want to say thank you to everybody that showed up to the pregame show and the postgame show, predicted he would house a punt in the pregame show, and as well was Jay Higgins getting an interception that was also part of my predictions for the game. So make sure to subscribe for more. I will see all of you again tomorrow, but this is today's video. So let's talk about Lajohntay Wester. Lajohntay Wester, obviously wide receiver out of Colorado, got drafted to the Ravens on day 3. And a lot of people looked at that as, hey, we got a punt returner. We got a special teamer. And yes, he can absolutely do that. I said that when we drafted him, like that's going to be the way that he makes it onto the 53-man roster. But I don't want this video just to be highlighting his one great return that he had. If you didn't know, he returned a punt for a touchdown where he made multiple defenders miss, and it wasn't just a straight line punt, cut back and forth, weave through the traffic, and was able to score. Kind of looked like his old college coach, Deion Sanders, housing that punt. But it wasn't just that. It wasn't just that one play that makes it so, oh yeah, we've got our guy. His first punt return was electric. I tweeted out after his first punt return, not the touchdown, I tweeted out saying, like, yeah, this guy's good. Like, this guy's electric. He has so much energy. He has the type of skill set that can bring a, stadium to a standing, right? You were excited for him to touch the football. The Baltimore Ravens haven't had a punt returner like that since Deion. I mean, we had Devin Hester, but, not prime Devin Hester. We had, all pro returner, Devin Duvernay. We had Jacoby Jones as a kickoff returner. I think, he was very good. I don't want to disrespect him. Rest in peace, Jacoby Jones. But Lajohntay Wester on the punt return game is to be feared. And that's just not all that he's going to be, though. As a wide receiver, he can play in the slot. He can play outside. And unfortunately, we had the worst quarterback performance, you could possibly ask for in the preseason. Devin Leary and our other quarterback, Cooper Rush, both struggled mightily, but Devin Leary just couldn't get the ball out. He had 43 yards passing. Guess who had 41 of those yards? Lajohntay Wester. Lajohntay Wester lined up outside, got a jump ball, made a play down the field. So, you got to give him credit for that. But, I really wish we got to see a little bit more from him in the passing game. The problem was the quarterbacks just legitimately couldn't get receivers the ball. So I feel bad for all the wide receivers. Outside of just Lajohntay Wester, who was special, a lot of the people are going to be talking about Mike Green. I don't want to get too ahead of myself. I don't want to hype him up too much, but I think Mike Green played well. He played to what we were hoping he could play as. I don't think he's going to come out and have a 15-sack season like I've seen some people saying. Like, Mike Green is still likely to be our number 3 pass rusher. Potentially number 4 based on how well David Ojabo played, just depending on if Ojabo can get on the field. But Mike Green looked solid. Like, I'm still happy with that pick. I still like my take on him. I think he's going to be a solid player and piece for the Ravens this year that can make some moves, but we'll see, how he develops. I'm excited for Chuck Smith to continue working with him with his pass rush technique and things like that, but definitely happy with Mike Green's performance. Malachi Starks looked fine. He barely played. He looked good when he was playing. Not a lot to analyze right there. Unfortunately, Bilal Kone had the injury, which, sucks. Nothing else you can say about it. Really sucks that he's going to be missing his rookie season. Teddy Buchanan then at the linebacker position. That was my guy. I said there's 2 guys that the Ravens need to be watching. That was the first video I made this week or last week leading up to the game, and it was Teddy Buchanan and Jay Higgins. And Teddy Buchanan, it was disappointing. It was kind of a non-factor in the run game. It really struggles with his block shedding. He didn't look like he had the speed out there that you necessarily need if you're not, as good against the run and things like that. He just kind of looked slow. Which, again, first game, I'm not counting him out by any means, but it was not the sign of like, hey, this guy needs to be starting over Trenton Simpson. Like, that was not the reaction that I had after the game. Jay Higgins, on the other hand, Jay Higgins looked really good, but at the same time, he was playing at the very end of the game, so it's not necessarily the best competition. He did have his interception. He did have a good tackle. He did have, a couple of plays that he was making. The problem was, I'd like to see him earlier in the game. I hope next week he does play earlier in the game because I think Jay Higgins was the best linebacker we had in the game. The problem is you know, he was playing at the very end of the game when not a lot of starters are playing. So that's kind of what happened there. But then moving on to kind of the final rookie I want to touch on is Tyler Loop. Tyler Loop obviously hooked a field goal left. He missed a lot. He missed a lot of those practice kicks somebody was talking about at halftime. He was taking kicks in that direction. He was struggling. So whether it was the wind or the footing, whatever it was, he was struggling kicking in that direction anyway. Ended up pulling the kick. But luckily he was able to bounce back and knock down his next kick. But going 1 for 2 on his kicks, he did hit all of his extra points, but 1 for 2 on your kicks, that's not going to come out as satisfactory. Luckily one of the kicks that he did make was a 50+ yarder, so that at least shows the range. Like, we know he has a big leg. The question is, how consistent can he be inside of 50 yards? Not a great start, but not a detrimental start that is ruining his career. Right, this is a preseason game. We'll see how he bounces back. We've got 2 more preseason games, and then the regular season starts. So he's nailed every test in practice. I still have confidence in him in the games, but overall, that's kind of how the rookies played. Lajohntay Wester was definitely the guy to watch. He was the most entertaining, I think. And I did forget to mention Fub Peebles. Fub Peebles had a nice PBU. Fub Peebles actually looked really solid on the D line. I'm really happy with our D line depth. I did forget that he was a rookie. That's how good he looked, though. Like, he looked like a vet when he was playing. He looked like he knew which run fits he needed to be in. He knew how to rush the passer. Not necessarily getting a lot of wins. That's not the expectation for him as a rookie, but he clogged the lanes. He was a part of a couple of gang tackles, and I really liked how Fub Peoples looked. Let me know in the comment section down below your thoughts on the game, on Lajohntay Wester, Mike Green, Malachi Starks, and all the rest of the Ravens rookies. But thank you so much for watching. Subscribe for more, and I'll see all of you again tomorrow.